In this video, I'm going to show you how to perform a single stage approval using the approvals kit. So just to set the stage, I'll show you the work item. So assume that there's a fictitious company called as Girish Corporation Limited, and we have an employee named as Girish, and Adele and Alex and Lee, and a simple configuration whereby Girish reports to his manager Alex. Now, from a single stage approval perspective, we have a simple application called as add travel approval request. So there is an add travel approval request, and Girish wants to fly for a conference in Sydney, and Girish takes approval of his manager. So what we are going to do over here is I will just hard code the manager. Okay, I will not use make use of any special Office 365 manager functionality, but I'll just hard code the manager. So Girish is submitting a request. Is Girish is an employee, and Alex is his manager, and Girish submits the request to Alex. Now here, if you see, I have installed business approval management application, which is like an approvals kit. Okay, so approvals kit, a model driven app is called as business approval management, and this is the home page. I have opened Power Automate. I have opened email. I have opened an application. So this is an add travel request application. It's a very simple application. So what does that application does is like if you create a new request, then you can specify who is the traveler, what is the departure city, what is the destination city, departure date, return date, and that's it. A new record gets created in this table. Now this table is add travel request. A new line item gets added. Once a new line item is added, a trigger happens to the data was table in the backend, and then the approval triggers. So multi-step happening over here. So I'll just show you how to configure a simple single stage approval workflow within approval scheme. So to start with, click on configure a workflow. So click on configure a workflow over here in the home screen. So if you do that, what will happen, it will open a authoring interface whereby you can author the single stage approval workflow process. Just to understand the application, now I'm not going to cover everything in this video because we have modularized various things in different videos. So first thing, what you need to do is like you need to specify what this workflow is all about. So I'll just say it is air travel single approval process. Okay, so this workflow is called as air travel single approval process. Now there are various things. There is a variable, there is a version, there is a save. So what we're going to do, we're going to just save this. Okay, so we are just saving the name. It says process saved successfully, so there is nothing much in it. Now here, this is a canvas. Here you can add a stage, you can add a node. Here you can maximize or minimize this view, and also you can fit it, and also you can do a lock unlock kind of a scenario over here. And then this is kind of a document map whereby you can navigate to the various controls. Now to start with, I'll click on add a stage. Now if I click on add a stage, then what should happen is like it should open an interface whereby I should be able to add that stage. So first stage, so we just have one stage, and we will just call it as air travel single approver stage. Okay, you can name anything, but I'll just put single, and then I'll put add travel single approval stage description. Condition, there can be none, if else or switch. We are not going to go to the complexity of this because I'm going to cover that in a separate video. We'll keep it simple. Click on that and click a stage. Now our stage is created. Now this is how the stage looks like. It is like a rectangular box. Okay, and then you can add a node within the stage. So outside you can add multiple stages, inside you can add a node. So within a stage we can add node. Here if you click on this three dot, then there is an option for you to go into and edit this configuration. You can change the name, you can change the description, you can change the condition, and at the same time you can delete the stage as well. Okay, so I'm gonna just cancel this out here. Okay, we have added a stage. Now click on add a node. Now here, the by default, the radio button which is selected is approval. So we are gonna add a new approval. I'll just say add travel approval manager. Add travel approval manager. Okay, and then you can put the description as well. So what we have done, we have added a stage, we have added node. Now approval type can be approve, reject, everyone must approve, reject, first to respond, custom responses, wait for all, and wait for one. Now I'm not going to go into the complexity of this because we will just pick up the first one, everyone must approve. Now in our case there is only one approver, okay, so we'll keep it very simple, and the other part I'm going to cover in a different video. So first thing, everyone must approve, okay, so in our case only the first person who's there who will be approving it. Now from an approver perspective, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just hard code this, okay, so this will only work for say Girish and Alex. So Girish will submit a request and Alex is the approver. So I'm going to just type Alex, and then Alex's information will come over here, and once it is resolved I'll select Alex. Now once you select Alex, click on add, okay. Now just to show you something, there is a section over here which says user and dynamic. So we have just picked user. So what we are doing, we are just hard coding the approver over here, and the approver is Alex. So this particular workflow process will only work between someone and Alex, okay, irrespective of whether Alex is a manager or not, because I'm going to cover that in another video whereby I'll show you how to use the dynamic content and all those kind of things. But just for a start, this is a very simple approval process whereby a user is going to submit the request, which is a Girish, and Alex is going to approve it. So Alex name is hard coded. Now notification, we can have default or none, just keep it default. Delegation rule is none as of now. Again, delegation rule I'm going to cover in another video. So just to make all these concepts clear, now I'll click on save. So what we have done, we have now created air travel approval manager workflow process, okay. So if someone submits a request, then Alex is going to approve or reject it, and then your workflow process works. Now if you go into the various section, you can see what all things you have made. So if I click on workflows, then here you will see various workflow which was executed previously, various node instances, various reference data instances. But in our case, we have just designed it, right? We have just designed a stage. So here you will see the stage which we have designed, okay? And so there is airfare approval. And then there is, so if I show you airfare approval, QLD staff, air travel single approval process, first float. And so these are all things I have designed long back, okay? Now, the one which we designed in the process, which I'll show you, air travel single approval process. Now we have built this workflow. Okay, if you want to go back, we can click on process designer and go back to this workflow. But what you need to do is, like, before you even make use of this, you need to publish this information. Okay, so there is a button over here to save, and at the same time you can publish. So I'll just publish this, and then it will start publishing this information. First node in first stage must not have any condition. Approval stage must have at least one node. No stage is inaccessible, and then just say publish. So if all the boxes are ticked, your workflow process will get published. Now, this process may take up to 1 minute to complete, so let it complete. In the meantime, I'll show you the model driven app which we are going to use. Now, we need to hook this model driven app with a Power Automate workflow and make use of that workflow which we have just created over here. Okay. Now, once this is published, you will see an activation status is published, and then you can use this workflow in Power Automate. Now, this is a model driven app. So what we are going to do with this model driven app is someone is going to come over here, open this model driven app, and submit a request. Now this request needs to be connected to the workflow. Okay, so that hooking of model driven app to the workflow, I'm going to demonstrate that. Now you can use it for any application. So I'm just making use of model driven app, but it can be a canvas app, or it can be any application which you can build using Power Platform, or it can be any third party application as well which can have a direct interface with that Power Automate flow. Now, as you see over here, this workflow process is published, publishing status is published, activation status is active, my workflow is ready. Okay, so I'm just closing this. Now, if in the approval designer, if I now go to the stages, okay, here you will see a lot of uh, stages which has been created over here. Here you will see a lot of nodes which has been created over here previously. If we go into the process, here you will see air travel single approval process. Now if I go inside air travel single approval process, and if I click on stages and nodes, I will be able to see all this information. Okay, so If you want to edit it, or maybe if you want to create a new version, then you can also do that. So add travel approval single process. If you want to go back, go into the process designer. Now the first time you publish, it is called as version 1. Now as you make more changes and do that publishing, then the version number increases. Now if you see version, this is version 1. Okay, let's go into Power Automate, go into the right environment where your application resides. So my table is in Girish Dev environment, my model driven app is in Girish Dev environment, and then I have Power Automate flow. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a new flow. Okay, and this is an automated cloud flow, and I'll just skip this process. Here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just say approval single stage. Okay, now here I need to add a trigger. Now the trigger is basically if this model driven app, someone adds a record into this model driven app, then only triggers this Power Automate flow. So for that, I'm gonna make use of data verse. So when a row is added, modified or deleted, and the type is basically if someone adds a record over there, and the table is add travel request, and the scope is organization, and that's it. So I've just saved this. So my trigger is ready. So it says your flow should contain at least one trigger and one action. Okay, so it is not allowing me to save. So if I click on plus over here and I say add an action, then I will just type approvals kit, right? So if I type approvals kit and if I search over here, I'll see whole bunch of information or various connectors available over here. If I select the runtime as custom, okay, then here I'll see approvals kit, and if I click on show more, it will say approval kit start business approval process. So I'll select this start business approval process. Now, the moment I select this, then in the drop down, it says select the workflow process. Now, here, the one which we have created is listed add travel single approval process. So, I'll select this add travel single approval process and I'll just click on save. Now, let's see if it allows me to save or not. Yes, it is allowing me to save. However, it is asking me one parameter which is mandatory. It is saying who is requesting this. So, this is coming by requested by. Okay. Now, when you add a record over here, now the person who is creating this request, I'm assuming that that person is the creator. Okay, now that is the person who is requesting. So Girish is requesting. So how does the Power Automate comes to know about this? So when a row is added, modified or deleted, then I need to get a an email address. Okay, so I can directly hard code it and I can say it is coming from Girish.uppal at 0k k.onmicrosoft.com. Okay, so I can type hard code this email address, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is make use of another connect action over here. So if I click on plus, add an action, and I'll just type data verse, and I'll say get row by ID. Okay, so I need to get a row by ID. Now the person who is actually creating a record in the model driven app is basically a user, right? So it's a user. So if I just type users, so then I can see users table, and in the row ID I'll just click on dynamic, and then I will type created by. So if any row is added, modified, deleted, I'll say created by value. So unique identifier of the user who has created it. Okay. And then I'm referencing user table, and then from there I will get an email address. Okay. So if I go to start business approval process now, and if I remove this value, I don't want it to hard coded by, say, it will be submitted by Girish, but I'll just say pick up a dynamic content and I'll select get a row by ID, and I want an email address. So if I just type email, it will say internal email address for the user, primary email. So that's how I'm hooking up the person who is creating this request, okay, with this particular component. All good. Click on save. So what we have done, we have already created a model driven app, which is a simple app. If someone submits a request, then it should it should go into that workflow process. Okay, so it is saving, the flow is getting saved. Now over here in the approval center, we'll go into the approval center. Now currently if you see in the home page, there are sections below over here, my submitted workflows and received approval request. Now here, you will not see that workflow being run, okay, because we haven't actually triggered anything, okay. So once this flow is saved, what we are going to do, we are going to uh, go into this application and try to add a request, okay. So add travel request app, simple thing. I'll just click on new. Traveler name is Girish. It doesn't matter, it's a hard coded value, or it's just like we are just putting some value. Departure city is Brisbane, destination city is Sydney, and departure date is maybe May 2nd. Return date is maybe 7th May. And I'll just save this record. So, ideally, what should happen if your flow is designed correctly, then you can actually see that flow will execute, okay. But if it doesn't execute, then there is a problem. But in our case, it has successfully executed. So if I click on the 6 second ago flow run, then it will tell you that this flow has run successfully and every step is going on good. Okay, so we have hooked the model driven app with a Power Automate. Now Power Automate is already linked with this business approval management model driven app. So if I click on approvals kit application over here, and if I just do a quick refresh, then you should actually see the workflow being triggered. So if you see over here, the first line item, it says my submitted workflow. So workflow number 001017, add travel single approval process version number 1. And it will show you received approval request. So who will receive this request? Alex will receive this request because this is the first line item. So let's log into Alex. Go into Alex, and here, if I see 1636, I have received an email like Alex has received this approval request, okay. Now again, going back to the application, here it says received approval request, approver is Alex, and instant state is running, okay. Instant state is running. Now going to Alex, and Alex can do a couple of things. Alex can either approve and put a comment, or Alex can either reject and put a comment. So let's start with Alex approved it. So Alex says, okay, Girish, this is nice. And Alex has approved this. Okay, so if I click on submit, then Alex is actually approving my request. Now, if I come back to this application again, here, watch what happens over here. Okay, if I click on refresh, and if I just scroll down, here it says the instance is completed. So that means Alex has approved this request so and so time, date time, right? Now, if you want to see more information about what has happened in this entire workflow process, you can click on this instance number hyperlink, and then here you will see all the information. You will see the instance number, workflow instance, node, approval type, approval ID, notification, when it was actioned, and what is the outcome. Now, here the outcome is approve. Okay, and here you got a comment as well. Okay, Girish, this is nice. Now what we are going to do, we are going to run this, we are going to again submit a new request. Okay, so let me again submit a request and say maybe now Girish is getting more ambitious, and Girish says that okay, my boss is already approved for Sydney, let's try out my luck. So Girish will say departure city is Brisbane and destination city is maybe Las Vegas, and Girish says, oh, there is some Power Platform conference, and let me book in for August 7th, and then I'll take another month off and I'll be back by 26th of September. And I'm submitting this request to my manager. So now this is the second request which Girish is submitting to Alex. Now, if you see Alex, uh, Alex's Outlook, now there's nothing over here because the first one is already approved. So you'll see that the first request is already approved. So in some time, Alex should receive another email for the second request which Girish has submitted. Now, but this time the durations are different and it is coming from city Las Vegas, and Girish has submitted that request. So let me refresh this. It might take some time. It will take like 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes sometimes, because it goes through that approval process, and then you should be able to like your manager or like Alex in this case should be able to receive this email. Okay, now as you see over here, Alex has received this email, and Alex has seen that okay, Girish has already requested for Sydney conference. Now he's already almost requesting for Las Vegas, and I can't afford that. Okay, so I'm just gonna say reject and say, uh, please do not mention overseas trip. We have lot of work in office. So manager is just rejecting his request. Okay, so I'll say okay, submit this, and the whole workflow process is completed. Now let's see from the application perspective how it has fared. So here in the model, in the add travel request app, you have submitted that request. If you go into the uh, approvals kit application, if you go into the home page, here you will see two requests submitted. One is approved, one is rejected. Now the first one was rejected, so the first one over here is rejected, and the second one over here was approved. This was for Sydney trip and this was for Las Vegas. And if you want to see more information, you can go into the instance number and you can see various details, like the outcome is reject. Okay, and it says please do not mention overseas trip, we have a lot of work in office. So that's how you can have a single stage approval within the approvals kit. So just to give you a recap, if I go into that configure workflow section, so if you want to open that workflow process, what you can do, you can go into the approval designer, go to the process, and then go to add travel single approval process, go to process designer. It will open that authoring interface. So what we have done in this workflow, we have assumed that a user is going to submit a request to his manager. Now the manager name is hard coded. Okay, so what we have done, we have hard coded the manager name. Now if I do not want to hard code the manager name, I'll go over here and I'll see that okay, this is add travel single approval stage, so that's good. If I click on this node, then I have hard coded my manager name. Now if I do not want my manager name to be hard coded, then I'll remove this username. Okay, and instead of hard coding it, I will just make it dynamic. Now if I go to dynamic, I have a lot of options: manager of initiator, manager of request starter field, manager of last approval. I'll pick up manager of initiator. So that means whoever has initiated that workflow will send that request to their manager. So if my manager is say not Alex but someone else, then that person will receive that email. Okay, but I'm going to cover this dynamic user in my next video. So that's it, folks. This is how you basically create a simple single stage approval process for an application and then hook it up to the approvals kit application. Thanks for watching.